Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode number 20 of Your Life Projectized. Today's episode is called The Who's Who in Agile, exploring key roles from Scrum Master to Product Owner. And this is going to be another exciting, dynamic episode. And I can't believe we are already at episode number 20. Where has the time gone? So, anyway, for today, I have another dynamic, interesting speaker. On the line with me today, I have Mr. Purav Trivedi. And Purav, if I said your name wrong, please forgive me and please help me correct it. But Mr. Purav Trivedi is on the line today, and Mr. Trivedi is a leader in the Agile world. And Purav, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and share with the audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, congratulations, Parmjit, on
Thank
episode number
you.
20. And thank you so much for having me on the call as well. Really looking forward to our chat tonight.
Hey, thank
So,
you.
yeah, a little about me, I guess. I am, yes, thank you. I feel I'm a blessed. In my position, I'm in a leadership role at Wells Fargo Rail. Um, I get to work with over 30 developers and with whom, we work hand in hand to um, create new solutions and, design amazing applications for our end users. And yeah, we use the Agile methodology. And a lot of the topics that we're going to cover is kind of what I get to do day in and day out. So happy to chat with you about this.
Awesome. This is going to be such a riveting conversation. I think our audience is really going to enjoy this. Uh, and as soon as you said 30 developers, I automatically I have a million questions in my head. Obviously, I'm not going to ask you a million questions, but before I get to ask those questions, I want to ask you. So, for the folks that are listening, right, who might be unfamiliar, so I think a lot of folks who are in the project management world or who are familiar with Agile, they know some of the different roles in the Agile world. But for people that are unfamiliar, right? Can you identify each of these roles? So can you identify what it means to be a Scrum Master, a product manager, a project manager, excuse me, a product owner, and what are the roles and responsibilities of each of those?
Yeah, and just kind of how you kind of got a little twisted there, right? Talked about that. That's exactly what I think a lot of people kind of encounter, right? So I'll probably jump around with these, but let's
Mhm,
try to define them as basic as possible, right? So let's start. I think the best one would be with a project manager. So
mhm,
a project manager, really what he or she would do is they'll organize a plan to complete a specific project, right? That's within a timeline, specific timeline, and within budget. So they'll plan, they'll organize, they'll report, they'll provide updates to the stakeholders, to the sponsors of the project. They'll work with the team, and this could be across all different avenues, right? So project manager is not strictly related to IT, but it could be in different domains as well. So that's our generalization of a project manager.
mhm,
So now if we're talking about maybe the next one would be a product manager. So product manager is take a product, right? Take any product, whether it's again it's in the IT world or it's an actual product as like a cell phone or a watch or something. So someone envisions an idea of a product, of a specific product, and then their goal is to basically grow with it, evolve with it, and then see, how far you can benefit it, right? So
mhm,
take a very large example of Facebook. So Facebook started as a product, and then it eventually it grew into a multi-billion dollar corporation that it is now. But at one point, it was a product, and now as we go into the conversation, we'll dive deeper into it too. One of the key things that the product manager kind of focuses on is actually two or three rather. The UI UX, so that's user experience, user interface of the product itself, right? There's data that he or she would need to analyze and look at. And then the third one is working with developers as well. So these are kind of three things that really a product manager more or less is focused on day to day, and their domain knowledge on whatever the product is. You would think they're basically the subject matter experts on that. Then let's shift a little bit more towards a traditional agile, right? So now you're dealing with product owners and scrum masters.
Hmm.
So in a typical development team, you have a bunch of developers, you have a product owner, and then you have a scrum master. So scrum master, more or less, let's think of them as, by definition, they're servant leaders who are supposed to help your scrum team, right? And then they'll help with any impediments that the team has, any conflicts, any constraints. They're there to help them out and make sure that the scrum team is able to deliver what they set out to in the beginning of the sprint towards the end of the sprint. Um, the product owner now, they're basically now your subject matter experts, right? So
Hmm.
you're not necessarily dealing with a product. It could be an application, it could be a series of different things, but they're the ones who the business users would go to and say that, hey, this is what we want in the current application, or this is what we want to see going forward. And this person would then basically maintain this backlog, the product backlog, and then they will start writing these user stories that the development team will pick up as they're doing their development when the sprints start. So they prioritize all these stories. They refine them after reviewing them with the business users as well as the technical teams. They get all clarities. They get any questions that need to be answered. They basically do a lot of that legwork. And it's really back and forth, that liaison between the two, different teams who speak a little bit of technical, who don't speak a little bit of technical too, but at the end of it, they make it work. So I know we ran down real quickly, but these are your basic roles and responsibilities of the four different roles.
No, thank you so much because I think you explained it really well. And Purav, you mentioned a sprint, right? And so, of course, I'm also a Scrum Master. Well, sorry, in my one of my roles is I am a Scrum Master, or at least I have the certification. I haven't been in that role in quite some time, but anyway, you mentioned a sprint, right? So for folks that are listening who may not be familiar with what a sprint is, how would you define a sprint in layman's terms?
Yeah, so sprint basically it's a time frame, right? So it's a time frame. Usually it's 2 weeks, about 8 or 9, 10 maybe working days, just depending on how the schedules fall. Usually 2 weeks,
Hmm.
where the development team, picks up certain items that they're going to be working in that time frame. So they'll pick it up, they'll do the development, they'll do the testing, and again, by the end of the sprint, the goal is to deliver a working software. Now, we're not saying that you're building out Facebook from start to finish. It's going to be part of it, right? So you set out to deliver that. Okay, we're going to build out like a profile page, for example. So that's what the team will work on. And the goal is to give some sort of a working software at the end where it may not be, again, fully hashed or cleaned up, but good enough where they can take that forward as they continue working in the following sprints.
Okay, and iterations, right? So
In
like
iterations,
a little,
exactly.
okay, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome. No, thank you for explaining that. And so, would have been thinking about all these roles, right? How would these roles either collaborate or maybe even clash, right, on a well-functioning team? And do you have any stories that you could share where maybe their differences either became a superpower or a challenge on the team?
Um, so again, let's I think if we focus on the product owner and the scrum master and that
Hmm.
in that aspect, I think that would be easier for the general audience. But
Sure.
so there's no hierarchy in this, right? There's no that product owner is like a manager per se, or the scrum master is a manager, or the developers are. Basically, by the definitions of agile and all, they're saying everyone should hold each other accountable. That's the deliver or the developers as well as the scrum master and the product owner too. The product owner does, I would say, have a little bit of an edge because he or she kind of has the overview, not just for the immediate sprint, but for the long run, right? And whatever that roadmap is, if it's something 3 months down the line, 1 year, 3 years, but that little bit of a longer vision this person has as opposed to maybe the Scrum team. But at the same time, the Scrum team, before a sprint starts, the team actually decides what things they're going to be working on, right? It's the power is in their hand. So if they're not comfortable with the user story, they'll go back to the product owner and say that, hey, we're not ready to pick this up. There's still some questions and clarity that we need. So can you please go ahead and refine or, get us that clarity or get us that set of information that we're seeking. So that, once that's done, they'll go ahead, they'll pick up their items. The product owner will go back and do the refinement and get ready for, the following sprint. And then the Scrum Master, again, I think of the Scrum Master as like a coach or a manager in sports, right? This person's responsibilities is to take care of the team. So any like external impediments, any noise, any specific requests that come through, one-offs, this person will do his or her level best to keep all that away and let the team focus on giving the opportunity for them to deliver what they promised in the beginning of the sprint. Conflict of interest, to your question, sometimes yes, it could get it could get a little rowdy, if you will, right? You Agile teams too, they have to be flexible. So even though
Hmm.
you're setting out with your marching orders on day one, they surely can change, within the sprint, towards the end of the sprint, if there are other priorities or other, important things that come through, right? There might be a compliance thing, someone may be out, so you have to kind of readjust to that. And those are, naturally adjustments that you try to make. And of course, then there's some things, again, I think trying to draw back to your question that is there, some dominancy in all of this, right? Or superpower?
Yeah.
Not exactly, but yeah, every maybe once in a while, you could probably see a product owner coming in and saying that, hey, we definitely need to, meet this deliverable date and we need to get this product developed and, moved on to the next stage at least, right? So trying to meet that timeline, but I think it's very few and far in between, right? Majority of times, everyone's on the same page and everyone shares a common vision. So
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of my favorite things about Agile and about, a Scrum team and a Scrum Master who's the servant leader. It's the idea of really everyone working together. I mean, honestly, that's the way it should be, regardless of whether it's Agile or it's waterfall project management, right? That's the way it should be. But that I think is what appeals to me about Agile is that there really isn't micromanagement and everyone really is working together. And if one developer, for example, let's say maybe they are behind on one of their stories, the Scrum Master is now going to help them. And maybe there's another resource on that team, another developer who can maybe make up for the lag in finishing that story,
yeah,
right?
absolutely. Is that one of the challenges you see sometimes too, just falling behind in the schedule or personality? I don't want to dig in, but just what's your perspective on that?
No, so I think sometimes this hasn't been a challenge for me, but I have seen it on some Scrum teams where a developer might say they might take on more than they can handle.
Right.
They're overly optimistic, which can be a great thing, but then that also sometimes hurts the team and the progress on a story or stories because the developer is now falling behind and now again I don't want to say the scrum master has to jump in to save the day, but in a way they have to jump in to kind of save the day.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely right. It's almost an unsung hero at times, right? Because
Yeah.
this person's like completely out of the picture. They really don't want to interfere, but you know, again, that's my comparison. Just like coaches and managers, they don't get the credit, but at the same time, when they're backing their players or whatever the scenario is, they're rightfully there for them too. So similarly here as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we said, right, the way it should be, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah,
And so for let's talk money, right? Because
yeah,
I'm pretty sure that a lot of folks that are listening, they want to know, okay, well, how much can I expect to make in each of these different roles, right? So what sort of is, and I know you may not have all the exact figures, but what is the typical pay range for these roles, and what factors do you think influence where someone might fall in on that scale?
Yeah. So I did a little research before before getting on this call with that. But no, so let's talk numbers first, and then I think let's get into the factors, right? So we'll start with again, I think project manager, right? So project manager, if you're looking at the median salary, nationwide in the US, you're hair over, about 100,000, right? Give or take. Then you have your product owner and Scrum Master who kind of line up on the median salary, and that's, anywhere between 110,000 to about 112, 113.
Okay.
Um, and really, the product manager, that's a little bit on the higher side. So the median on that, a person, with that title or roles and responsibility can possibly look at about 126,000 annually in base salary. So all the numbers I ran through, these are base salaries and bonuses and all that, would be an add-on, right? Now,
Mm-hmm.
what could be some of the factors in this? So the first and foremost is definitely your qualification, right? How long have you been in these roles, or as you have been graduating to them? How well you're doing your job too, right? So your history, your experience definitely is the number one factor. The number two factor, with all things, it's location. So really, where are you located? Are you in the Bay Area? Are you in, NYC, or are you in another up and coming city, right?
For sure.
Um, so these factors definitely matter too. And then I think the last one I would say is just what domain you're in, right? So there are different domains, even in the IT sector, that pay differently. Now, if you're with, one of the top five or seven, and you're in one of these roles, chances are that your salary is going to be much higher versus maybe if you're with a startup, or, with your, even if you're with one of the Fortune 500 companies, it may not be in the top echelon, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my understanding and talking to friends and coworkers around the industry and all, these are the three common factors that really determine your overall salary and packages.
Awesome. No, thank you for sharing. And I think all of the factors you mentioned absolutely definitely do play a role. And so, uh, related to that, are there any specific certifications, Purav, that an individual can acquire to potentially boost their salary earning potential for each of these roles? Uh,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one I would yield to you because you might be the best to answer, but here, let me take a crack again. So again, my understanding, right? So with the project manager, the PMP is probably your best bet, right? And definitely I yield to you on that. But so product owner and Scrum Master. So since these are part of the Agile frameworks, right? There are different Agile certifications. There's the SAFe certificate, which you can get one, for Scrum Master as well as a product owner.
mhm.
There's a certified Scrum Master, certified product owner certifications that the industry has for years, and many people have obtained them too. That definitely helps them grow, both in their roles as well as with financial packages. Excuse me. And then lastly, product managers. So this is interesting. Um, I've seen more and more, bigger universities offering certifications on them, right? Uh, I, I don't know how current that is. I haven't done my research on it thoroughly, but it feels maybe within the last few years only these certifications have come out.
Mhm.
A friend of mine did a master's program recently, and I know in one of his curriculum he had a project management type course that he had to take, or product management. So within getting a computer science master, this is one of the core classes that they're teaching or giving you as an elective that you can take in that. And of course, you work through that, you understand the business process of it a little bit, or you start looking at the macro picture, it only helps you more. But definitely, big name universities are offering these, 6 months, 7 months certifications that can only help someone.
Absolutely. And thank you for mentioning the PMP.
Oh yeah,
And yeah, and you're
please
right.
tell us about that.
It would be my pleasure. So the PMP is, which for folks who might be unfamiliar, stands for the Project Management Professional. It is a certification. And I'm going to preface what I'm about to say with this opinion is my own. This is just how I feel. Um, I feel that that is the PMP certification is one of the best certifications that an individual can obtain in the realm of project management. And this is not to say that the certifications that are offered by some of these colleges don't have value. They absolutely have value. But I think a lot of companies, at least from my experience, and I've been a project manager, I want to say for, gosh, close to 15,
Forever,
maybe even two, yeah, just about forever, exactly.
forever.
I've been a project manager for quite some time, and I remember when I was on the job hunt, right?
Yeah,
A lot of companies were specifically looking for the PMP. And I could tell them all day that I got this certificate from so and so college. And again, that had its value. And again, it depends on the organization, right?
right.
But a lot of folks were looking for the PMP. And so I think the PMP really is the holy grail of project management certifications. Uh, I am probably a little bit biased, right? I have my PMP and I hold the Project Management Institute in such high regard. But truly, I think it's an excellent certification to have. And please don't quote me on this, but folks that are PMP certified can make close to 20% more. And again, this isn't all across the board, but typically they can make up to 20% more in salary than maybe someone who does not have their PMP. And I am proof of this. I know ever since obtaining my PMP, my salary has only increased.
Oh wow,
So
wow.
yeah. So yeah, thank you for sharing that and allowing me to also share about the PMP. I mean I did do a little bit of a plug for PMI and it's again it's because I am a little bit biased and this is why I said this opinion is my own and this opinion does not represent any organization.
Well, I think you speak from experience as well, right? So I think as you know, you and I have talked offline too, right? This obviously this it's a international institute. It's not something, that's specific to a local chapter or anything like that. It's worldwide, and there are thousands, maybe millions now, who have gone through this course. And please, like, how would you compare this to, maybe some other degrees out there? Like, is this a master's equivalent? Is this an MBA or,
I would say the PMP, in my opinion, is uh, closely equivalent to getting your MBA.
oh, wow,
Yeah, it is a difficult exam. It is a 200 question, 4 hour exam. But again, it's worth it. So, and I'm glad that you mentioned that it is a global certification because I forget to mention that, but the PMP is a global certification. So yes, again, you can get your a certificate from a college, from a renowned college, right? And I won't mention any here in the United States, but that certificate may not be worth much if you go to, let's say, Poland, right? Or you go to somewhere in the UK.
right.
Whereas the PMP, it is recognized across the globe. So I think for folks that are interested in project management, acquiring their PMP is definitely the best bet in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
I've, just personally in some of the places that I've been to, I've seen, um, executives, upper management leadership, right, who may not necessarily have an MBA, but certainly have a PMP that help them, get into those roles as well, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Uh, and And again, I could talk about I could talk about the PMP all day. As you could tell, it's one of my favorite things to talk. I love project management. I love PMI. I love the PMP. So I could go on for days, but I will not. I will not. So, Purav, if someone were trying to decide, right? of all of the roles that we've discussed, right? Of as far as what role to pursue, right?
Yeah.
How should they weigh their personal interests and skills against the potential salary, do you think?
Oh, well, great question. Well, uh, I think it's you really have to balance both, right? I think you have to understand, okay, one, my personal skills that I have, are they suitable for any of these roles, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, will I enjoy the work? There's so what I think one thing we haven't talked about is there's a lot of documentation, right? There's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of testing. There's a lot of stress. That there are crunch times that you need to deliver. You need to have, information for your team. There's dependencies on one another, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it can get pretty, pretty exciting at times. I would say I always love the challenge. I don't think it's something that frustrates anyone. There could be long hours, there could be weekends, nights that you're, working, and that's perfectly normal, in these scenarios. At the same time, you look at the pay packages, right? So they're pretty competitive, industry standards, right? And you learn so much, I think, right? You learn so much about the product, about technology. So if these are some of the things that excite you, and you see yourself kind of growing in and maybe eventually thriving in, then it's certainly something that one should consider, right? But if someone is not open to that much of excitement, I guess, or the long hours or the weekends or some of these other things we've talked through, then no, maybe I think it just, it's as everyone says, do something that you love and it's no longer work, right? So if one finds that, then that's golden. What else can you ask for?
Absolutely. It's funny because that's how I feel about this podcast. Uh, I mean, it is a lot of work, right?
Yeah,
Putting on a podcast, it is, right? Between the planning, the editing, the execution, the closing, right? It's a lot of work, but I love it. I truly enjoy doing this. I enjoy speaking with so many different guests, such as yourself, and learning about people and their roles. And I feel like these are educational. Like, but to your point, yes, I did. This doesn't feel like work,
yeah.
and
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 you're great,
it.
right? I think you're natural at it too. So listening to your
Ah,
other podcasts and your other guests, it's just it's conversation. It's informative, right? I've definitely picked up, a lot of things just listening, and that's I think the beauty of the time that we live in, right? There's just so many different channels, so many different avenues that you can go for, information, and really, I'm glad that folks like you are really taking this up and giving people like me a chance, I guess, but at the same time, but just help spread the knowledge. So
absolutely, and thank you so very much for saying that. That was very kind of you. I appreciate that very, very much. Um, and Purav, so thinking about, right, these different roles, which of
yeah.
these roles do you think provides the most opportunity for career growth, like for career advancement?
Um, so I think some of these are, they all have potentials, right? I don't think
Mm-hmm.
one is lesser than the other. They're structures, if you will, right? So again, if we talk about a singular product or a small deliverable, like all things in life too, I guess you start out small and then you eventually grow into bigger and better things, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you take your Scrum Master, your project manager, product owner, product manager, whatever it is. You start off at maybe level A, and then you advance to level B, C, D, and onwards, right? I think all of them have equally growth potentials. The beauty of it is also you can go from one to the other, right? As you understand what the other person is doing, then it's really more or less it's saying that, okay, now I know what my left hand does, now I know what my right hand does, right?
Yeah.
Now you bring that together and then you start walking and then you start climbing. So any role, again, any individual that's out there, I think the growth perspectives are just phenomenal. You look at some numbers and they keep saying, that these IT job sectors and specifically these positions, they're going to be in demand. And as
Mm-hmm.
I said earlier, it's just not the IT sector, right? There are other um, different segments out there too, like construction, party events. You can use some of these skills, these are leadership skills that are transferable, right? So in any other career that you may even transition into, these do not change, right? These things,
Mm-hmm.
once you learn, you hone them, they're reproducible and replicable. Um, so I think each and every one has growth opportunities. Some may be more, financially rewarding, right? Depending on how well you climb up the chain and where you end up. Um, but at the end of it, I think, no knowledge is wasted ever, right? It's just what you learn, what you gain, you can take with you wherever you go.
Absolutely. And what a perfect way to put it. Yeah, a lot of these skills are transferable. And again, I'm in complete agreement with you.
Yeah,
Um, and and I realize we're getting to the end of our time, but I do have a few more questions. So I want to go back to the first thing you said. You mentioned that you have managed a team of 30 developers, right? And this is just out of curiosity. What is that experience like? I mean, is it I've never managed a team that large of developers, but what was that experience like?
it's great. I mean, honestly, it's great. There's a rush to it. There's a kick to it, right? That you have so many people kind of dependent on you. Like, hey, what's next? What's our trajectory? And I'm a work in progress. I'm not going to say that I've perfected the art because I haven't. There are times where I may not be on my A game, but the thing is, again, we have the biggest positive point on this is the majority of the folks who are, in this group, right? We've been with one another for at least 5 years or more. So that's huge, right? When you consider that the longevity of a team, um, these days when a lot of folks are moving places or job hunting and switching from one place to the other, you don't have that foundation. But I think as our organization, we definitely do, and that works in our advantage. So I think that's definitely one. Two is when you're working with seasoned and brilliant people, your job just becomes that much more easier, right? Everyone knows their roles, everyone knows their strengths and weaknesses, and they play off one another, right? They'll work with one another, they'll help each other out. If someone doesn't know anything, they'll stay back and go to someone who's a little bit more of an experienced or um, expert in that specific domain, right? They would help them out. And it's great. I'm just, again, like I said earlier, I'm blessed to be in this position that I get to work with all these folks. But the main thing, from my overall, I guess, view is I have the entire macro view, right? So as an organization, we see, okay, we're talking about not something just 3 months down the line. We're definitely looking at 1 year ahead, right? We're looking even as far as 3 years ahead. So I don't have all the nitty gritty, and I don't think as an organization we have all the things fine tuned as well. But we definitely have a roadmap lined up, and we have all these checkpoints, if you will, that by certain time, by Q1, Q2 of year one, year two, year three, we will be here, and we certainly achieve those goals. So having that sort of a purview, and then you go back and then you work more on a day-to-day basis. You work at the micro level. I think it just makes it that much easier because again, the vision is there, so you know that what you do today will not show immediately tomorrow, but it will definitely be visible and presentable in the coming quarter or the following year or so. So I think that definitely helps me out too in just seeing the bigger picture.
No, I love that, and I love that you do have that foresight, uh, and because I think that is so important, and I'm sure your developers are grateful for your foresight and working with you, and I'm sure, and vice versa, right? So, and
I
sorry,
hope
you.
so too.
I'm sure they do. You are so it is very difficult not to like you. So, yeah.
Oh, that's kind of you.
You're welcome. So, Purav, if you could be in one role, right, for the rest of your career, right, what role would you
Yeah.
choose? Is it any of the roles that, we just talked about, or is it something, is it maybe a different industry?
Um, no, I think, industry, yeah, it could be something else too. It could be this, but I think, a lot of these, again, the roles are as such that, you come with the sense, I think the biggest trait that, excuse me, that someone needs is ownership, right? And I think I take ownership in that. So I treat this as I am the CEO of my role and my work, right? And my coworkers are we're I don't know, we're all co-CEOs, I guess. I don't think myself more than others or anything like that, but I just think collectively you have group of wonderful people coming together and trying to do something good, right? I feel like I'm quoting Avengers there, but we are maybe superheroes, but at the end of it, no, it's I think the ownership of it, right? So I have ownership of my work, I have faith in my team, and I feel that that type of management and again being blessed in this leadership position, it's helped me grow over the years, and it's certainly something I enjoy doing. And I've learned so much, right, with a lot of my seniors and some mentors that I have too, that start looking at the bigger picture, right? That once you step outside of your comfort zone and you start looking at the bigger picture, you understand exactly how things work, right? And again, these are these skills you maybe I start to understand a little bit better how, certain things in the world work better, right? Whether it's economics, politics, or something. But you just, once you start to broaden your horizon and your vision, there's just so much more. So I already have this mindset that I'm a CEO of my life and the things that I do on a day-to-day basis. So I don't know if there's anything, higher than that, but yeah, that's so yeah, CEO maybe of something somewhere, sure.
That is, and you're right, you are the CEO of your own life. We all are the CEOs of our own lives, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And what a wonderful perspective. And again, thank you for sharing that. And so for again, like I said, right, we're getting to the end of our time, and I know we kind of have been getting to the end of our time, but I'm a talker. That's what I do. So
Hey, it's I trust me, this is perfect. I love the interaction. But so I know you do something when you get to end of your show.
I
I
do.
I wanted to kind of jump in and take your spotlight, or
Okay,
I don't know how you feel about that, but
sure, please go ahead.
so a question that you ask all your guests is, what did you want to be when you were a kid?
Wow. Correct. That is a question I ask all of my guests.
I don't know if
Uh,
that's where we were gonna head, but
that
I
is
thought
where
let
I was
me jump in
heading.
and okay.
That is where I see talking about foresight again. That is where I was heading. So I definitely want to ask you that. I guess I'll answer that for you. What did I want to be when I was a little kid? So I've actually changed a few times, but I wanted to be either a Bollywood actress. And so Bollywood, for folks who are listening who may be unfamiliar, Bollywood is the Hollywood of India. And we are, or I should say, India is the number one producer of films in the world. We produce, or again, India produces more films than any other place in the world. But yes, I wanted to be either a Bollywood actress or a Bollywood dancer. I love dancing. I've been dancing. As a matter of fact, I have a picture of myself at 4 years old dancing.
Oh
I've
well.
always loved dance. Um, but then as I got a little bit older, I either wanted to do acting or to be on radio. And that is why I think I love doing the podcast so much, because it allows me to, right? I don't, I think I'm too late in my career. I don't think I would go be a radio personality now, because again, I do love being a project manager, but this kind of fulfills that for me. So, uh,
Well, you're great. I mean, again, just your charisma, your voice, your characteristics. I think everything's lined up to be, for this role, and it's great to hear you when I listen to you. So,
I appreciate that so very. Thank you,
absolutely,
thank you. And
yeah.
so now your turn, right? So spotlight is on you, Mr. Trivedi.
Oh, well, I wanted to be a pilot. Um, it was, I remember ever since I was a kid, I would always go with my dad whenever we had, um, someone coming over, we needed to drop someone off at the airport, and it was just, early morning flights, evenings, late evenings, whatever it was. I'd always go tag along, and for the longest time, I was always on the outside, right? So you never
Mm-hmm.
knew um, what happened when you went inside the airport. But you've always seen so many people, and you would see pilots and the flight attendants and all the other staff in their uniforms and whatnot, and just planes like ah, it was it was always it's still a dream, I guess, somewhere in the back of my head. But yeah, even when I
Well,
go on a plane right now, it's still I'm one of the few who still claps when we land. I know it's
you're one of
almost
those.
been now, yeah, but I know I just it blows my mind that we've come so far, and it's such an amazing thing to get on that aircraft and fly anywhere in the world.
Absolutely. No, the world has made such progress, right?
Yeah.
Since the Wright brothers, look at where we are today, right?
Oh man.
It's crazy. But it's never too late, right? So I would just say that it's never too late.
Yeah.
So watch out for
Fingers
Mr.
crossed.
Trivedi on a plane near you.
Oh,
Well,
hopefully.
Purav, this has been absolutely fantastic. Again, I think folks who are listening in are going to get so much value from this episode. You have shared so many nuggets of wisdom about, again, the agile world, pay scales, which I know are important to a lot of people. And I think, right, some folks don't know always where to look as far. I mean, yes, we have great sites like Indeed, et cetera, where they could maybe get an idea. But I think this was very helpful hearing firsthand from somebody who works in the agile environment. Oh, also one last plug before I let you go. I did want to say, so for folks who are listening, you talked a little bit about how long it might take to get a project management certification from
Yeah.
maybe a college. And I think you said some months, right?
Right.
So for the PMP, again, for folks that are listening, you by the time once you submit your application and when your application gets approved, you can even get your PMP after, of course, studying in as little as a few days. So,
Oh well.
so it is not as extensive as maybe getting that certification from a college. But again, I love the PMP. So again, this is my opinion, and I'm not trying to dissuade anyone from getting a certification from a college. I just wanted to share that for folks that are wondering. So that said, Mr. Trivedi, thank you again so very much for being on this episode and for bringing so much value to our guests.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Cora, for having me. Really appreciate your time and letting me join you this evening.
You're welcome. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.